Hello everyone. Sorry for my camera quality being terrible and my room being a mess. Both are equally death sentence crimes and my terrible looking headset. But tomorrow, or today, it is tomorrow, September 7th, is the anniversary of something very sad for me. Something that has made me want to die for a whole year now. And that is the sinking of my beloved RC boat, Anne. The boat that I spent not the most time on, but the most time on at the time, and I actually gave a shit about when I built it. It was, for background to anyone who doesn't know the story or this boat at all, pretty much anyone who hasn't been watching for at least like a year now won't understand this. But I built a Lindbergh Sidewinder fishing trawler model, just like this one, looked identical. Um, and I named it Anne. And every boat before this, every RC boat before this, utilized the electronics from a Target RC car, like from this. Now, the electronics from these are undoubtedly terrible. They're just one single circuit board that runs two motors. One motor for the drive, and then another motor for the steering. Now, I know what you're saying, well, don't all of them do that, really? No, because this one operates more like a tank, where there's your drive motor, and then you have a steering motor, not a servo. This is a servo. It's just a simple tiny motor with a little circuit board and a little dial in there that tells it where it is. And this will turn with it has a little gearbox on it. And this will turn with a lot of force, and you could just go left and right, and then it will bring itself back to the center again, reset the steering, making it easy to control. Everything good. Oopsies. But this is what we'd be running instead of the servo on the RC cars from Target. It's just a motor. It's just a motor. There's nothing more. It's just only a motor. A simple DC motor. Which obviously is not good for steering in a car or a boat. Like, who thought this fired whatever Chinese kid was forced to design to... Okay, well, now that sounds sad because he was forced to design this, but I don't care. Fire him. That sucks. And I know it's to keep costs down, but still, the user experience and $20. Yeah, every boat ran like that. Anne was the first one to not run like that. Anne ran on the electronics we know in RC boats today. It's still a mess in my boats, though, I'm not gonna lie. We now have a speed controller, we now have the receiver, we now have a servo and a bigger drive motor that actually has torque, and a bigger battery that doesn't die in 15 minutes. I have a few videos, which I'll probably play for you on the screen right now, of what my old boats used to look like, how they used to run, and how they used to sound, which their sound was very distinct. They had a buzzy noise to them because their motors were smaller and they were forced to work harder. They were slow as fuck, too. Here, I gotta put this back on. Alright, so how did we get here, then? How did we get to Anne and her upgraded electronics? Well, her upgraded electronics are essentially what opened the gates to my new boats. Now my tugboats could actually work reliably because they could fit electronics in them now. Now I can make much faster and stronger boats, which I'll get into in a minute. But at the time being, it was just Anne. There were a few boats in between with Anne, all tugboats, but they all sort of failed. They were too heavy. I didn't revisit tugboats up until recently, actually, with Goldine. I wanted to see how fast can I make an RC boat. And then this monster was created. This thing is my... This is my evil boat. This thing is freaking haunted, dude. This boat is different than the others because not only is it the most expensive, but it's caused the most pain and misery to me and my wallet than any other boat has. This boat, everything in it is sort of wrong, and it's sort of like if you put a a big block Chevy and a Model T without getting rid of the rust, then you got yourself what this is. This is a rat rod boat. It's a mess in this one. Oh, look, there's like stuff floating around. If you notice, there's no battery because the battery couldn't take it anymore and it died. All the cells got destroyed. And that's its nasty, crusty motor. But don't underestimate this motor. This thing is buck wild. Like, it does not fool around. This boat also comes with things like a winch. Like, yeah, there's your little winch there. Lo and behold, this boat is so fast, or the motor actually, it can't handle it. The hull is not efficient enough. It's too thin. So it just capsizes if you go full throttle. Meaning the lowest throttle is still too fast. I'm not even going to go into the voltage and amps and all that crap because then this video would get more boring than it already is. So you may be asking me, oh Garrett, why are you mentioning this overpowered nightmare of a fishing trawler model? Well, why does this concern you? Well, it's because this model and Anne, who I don't have anymore because, you know, she sank, they sort of got into an altercation. Anne is sort of like the mom here. She's slower, but she's wise. She runs more reliably. And this is like her geriatric retard son with too much ADHD in his brain. This thing is way too powerful to be around other boats. And that's why I tend to be the one who drives it, like, in all my videos, except for one, our RC boat goof-off video with Jacob. I let him drive it. And you saw what happens when I let other people drive this thing. They switch on full throttle to see what happens. And as we saw in the video, no one could be trusted with this thing other than the creator or someone who has enough experience. Now, Jacob is able to be trusted nowadays because he now knows what happens when you go full throttle and why you shouldn't go full throttle. Let me get rid of my hair here. But a lot of people don't. And at the time I took this out with Anne, both of us didn't actually know how bad this thing could be with other boats, especially if it were to run into them. And that's what happened. I'll be recreating what happened here so that we could finally give you the answer to how Anne sank. Although you already kind of know, but now you can visualize it. Anne's going along, and Grimwald's going along. We're having a race. Our race is going well. It's kind of stupid because Anne's really slow. But then Jacob, who is driving Anne, decides he wants to overtake Grimwald. Now, Grimwald, unlike all the other boats, has an auto throttle function because his motor is powerful enough to run at very low voltage. So what happens is, I'm chugging along, and Jacob's trying to overtake me, and he turns too early. Turning too early is really bad because you get hit by the boat that can't stop in time. And yeah, I crashed into him. He capsized slightly, came back up, but it was too late. Too much water had already flooded in. And he sank out there at the lake about, like, I don't know, maybe 40-something feet out in the 8-foot deep zone. And the RSM lake is illegal to swim in. So, even though I went swimming for that boat anyways. But it was over. There was nothing I could do. It was gone. I had to cut my losses that day and say goodbye to my old friend of a boat. It was really sad. But yeah, that's sort of the answer to what happened to Anne. It's really as simple as that. It was a terrible mistake when both of us weren't paying enough attention to our surroundings, and we ended up paying the price. I ended up paying the price. Jacob got away with it. But those aren't the only boat mishaps I've had. I've had a lot of mishaps involving boats and collisions. However, I'm just going to go over boats in general because there's actually not that many collision mishaps. This one had a collision with the lightship, which you saw in the video, but that was in a controlled environment. And this one's all waterproof anyway, so it doesn't matter. But I think I'll go over some defunct boats. Starting with this. I've got requests from people to make this work. People really want to see someone turn the Lindbergh paddle steamer into a working RC boat. I haven't even finished the paint job either. The paint job's still bare bones. But the short answer to am I going to make this work is no. I'm not going to make this work. You won't know. You'll know why when you work on one of these things. This is the motor that drives it. It's still in there. It's still crusty as ever. And all you do is you have a rubber band attached to it. My only problem is it just always goes too fast, and there's no room. There's just no room. If I wanted to, I'd get microelectronics and do all that. But then I'm not really putting... Like, this thing can't handle any water. It's too flat. It's a river boat. The only place I could drive this is at the pool. Because RSM Lake would batter this thing about until it went under. And there was no way I could seal this from water. That's not to mention the paddle wheel is essentially just a big old merry-go-round for water to get in. And the little, where our moving parts are, I forgot what these are called. I'm just going to call them the rods. Yeah, these are the arms, bro. Yeah, they just get in. It just gets in there anyways. And it tends to dig in, which is a big problem for this, because obviously you sink. So yeah, that's the short answer about the paddle steamer. No, I'm not gonna make that an RC boat, at least not anytime soon. And then another mishap involving another fishing boat, but not a fishing trawler, the tuna boat. This is not my fault for once. Like, for one time ever, it's not my fault that a boat sinks. This I was able to blame on the weather, rightfully so. This is all I have left of it because there was foam at the bottom of this, the wheelhouse. So when the boat sank, this was all that was left, just floating on top of the water. I was going to use a tugboat to get it back. But essentially what happened was the tuna boat, its design is very flawed. The Lindbergh tuna clipper is kind of an unrealistic design. It's very tall, yet there's only about this much clearance of water from the stern, like less than an inch of clearance from the water line. But the front's got plenty of clearance. It's about this much. It's more than any of the other boats, more than the lightship. So this thing ends up being very front heavy, meaning you have to put weight in the back, but it sits super low anyways. So what's the dealio, homeboy? I'm never saying that again. Oh, fuck. Well, the deal is that the tuna boat here was a very unstable craft, and it could not cope with weather because when you turn, the whole thing will list. The whole thing will just turn with your rudder. When I turn any of these boats here, even the paddle boat was able to turn correctly and stay level. Sandra, if I turn Sandra, she turns like this, only a little tiny list. The tuna boat did not. The tuna boat was like trying to do that shit they do at the skate park. Just not good. And it was a very windy day, the day I took it out. That boat had a motor from the 1970s, which also had a lot of torque, but not a lot of power to it. And it only made the list turning to the port side way worse, which is where I happened to be turning. And as a result, the whole damn thing sank. The stern went under because it list way too much. There's nothing I could do about it either. It's gone. It's in that lake. I'm not allowed to go down there and get it. It was very disappointing. But I kind of knew I had to get rid of that thing. If you were there to see the interior of that boat, which I think I have a video showing it, it was a junk boat build. And it was built from spare parts anyway, so it wasn't a financial loss for me. Like, they were really old electronics that barely worked anyways. And I had that model sitting for 2 years, so eventually it had to get used. So yeah, that was the unfortunate end of that. I think the final boat I'll be going over today is the lightship. Garrett, why don't you ever run the lightship anymore? Why don't you run the lightship? Because the lightship is too fat and slow, and the electronics it had were too underpowered. This thing is so gosh damn heavy. Like, it weighs, it's got good weight to it. It weighs like a newborn baby. And unfortunately, I left this model sit too long, and as a result, I lost all the parts. So you could actually see on the deck here, there are tons of little holes where you're supposed to put like railing and spotlights and tie downs, winches and lifeboat launches, all sorts of things like that. But I just lost them. Over time, they just started falling out of the box, falling off their frames. So I got it Christmas of 2020. It was so long ago. And I only recently came back. It was only like recently, 2023, I came back to tackle the project hands on. I think at that point though, it was just over. It was like, Garrett, this thing's too big. You don't have the resources necessary to make a boat that size. And I might repower it again one day, only with a bigger battery and more importantly, a bigger motor. Motors are the big thing. And yeah, I think that's where I'm gonna wrap it up today. Those are my defunct boats and very sad sinkings, at least the important ones. I might make another video like this where I just go over all the dog shit boats I've built over time. And yeah, I'll see ya.